Here on Money FM 89.3, I'm Claressa Montero. We have a few more questions for Minister Ng Chee Meng before we let him go. And these are questions that are relevant to Singapore's future. Are you ready for this, sir?
I think so. Should be.
What is in your mind? What in your mind is unique about Singapore? What is it about governing Singapore which is unique? Which I know, two different questions, but you can answer them both.
I have not attempted governing any other country. So I can't answer number 2 for sure.
Okay. Touché.
True?
True.
True.
Absolutely.
Well, what is unique about Singapore? I think the way that our country evolved from a backward kampong in the old days to a metropolis now is one of the rare feats that I know of in history.
Sure. We did have the odds against us.
Especially in our region. How did we get here? What are the ingredients that got us here? How do we strengthen those foundations? And then now, in a time where our country is undergoing an inflection point, how do we make sure that we are able to galvanize Singaporeans to go on the next part of the S-curve?
Right.
So that we can have another 50 years of success that we can share with Singaporeans. And we are unique at the moment because if you look at all the different indicators from Mr. Trump, Mr. Kim coming to Singapore, to the last 20-odd years where we were the location of choice for the cross-strait discussions, and you look at how different international bodies are coming to Singapore, we have a unique brand that people treasure.
Right.
Trustworthy, stable, consistent, and it's a place to do good business. That is unique. If you look at the Singaporean, well, are we unique too? I think so. For all that we are in Singapore, the good and the not so good, we have forged a nascent nation. We look at fellow Singaporeans with a certain care today. It may not be so every day in Singapore city, but when you go overseas, when you hear that Singaporean accent or somebody saying "ai bia jia ai," there is a certain kinship.
Yes. You're right. Actually, that's very true.
So when you look at the advantage of the macros of the unique brand of Singapore, if you look at the people and of course the education, the quality workforce that we have, actually we have the ingredients for us to look at how we can reinvent Singapore from the economy all the way to the social compact to bring Singapore forward.
Right.
And of course, being a military man, a former military man in the SAF, undergirded with a strong security, safe and secure environment for Singaporeans to live in. So if you come from that mindset, I think Singapore is uniquely placed to ride on the disruptive technologies to bring ourselves to the next phase of our country's story.
Right. I'm glad you said that because it gives me a sense. Actually, as a Singaporean, it gives me a nice sense of calm to hear you say those things. As a Singaporean as well, my concern and a lot of my contemporaries' concern will be the Singapore for our children.
Yes.
And they face challenges we didn't face. The world is more globalized. The world is more competitive. But as parents, we want our children to be protected. We want them to have more than we ever had. How do we ensure that for the future Singaporeans?
You can't.
How do we try?
We'll try by equipping them with the values, with the outlook, with the skills that at some point in time they will have to fend for themselves. Just like when we were kids,
Sure.
we learned through embracing different types of risks, make certain mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and powered through to build the country across 4 or 5 generations of Singaporeans. No point designing something for the kids, engineering it for the kids to the extent where you almost assume that the world will not change. So it is almost contradictory to what you have premised as a changing environment, and yet having that desire or the instincts to want to protect your kids.
Sure.
It is not in the 1 + 1 = 2 type of formulation.
Sure.
It is in the more expansive way of thinking of getting the best education for the kids, getting them founded on the good values. And as I was saying, being a former education minister, how to improve on the knowledge base to get them to apply their learning and have a different attitude than my generation. Catching the entrepreneurial dare, the spirit of creating new things and really transforming our economy into a value-creating one as compared to a value-adding one of the past.
Right.
I think that is absolutely critical. And coming back to the question of uniqueness, I think we are uniquely placed in our region and maybe even beyond to seize the opportunities that technologies are bringing forth. If Singaporeans do not have the ability to absorb the energy, apply it for the economy, I'll be worried. But at this stage of our national development, I see wonderful opportunities amidst all the different anxieties that we may have.
Right.
You asked me the question earlier, whether you'll be able to ride on the technology wave. I think we can. I think even for those that may have fears, we must do our best to bring them along. But for all of us with the background that we have, the education that we have, think about it. Who in our region is better placed to ride on the digital technologies, the artificial intelligence, the robotics, to reinvent ourselves for a better life? So that question you asked is a fantastic question. I can go longer on this. So uniquely branded, founded on real substance, uniquely positioned for us to launch into the next phase of our Singapore story. And with the people that hold together in the new tensions of globalization, with the new tensions of religious terrorism, with the different things that are pulling societies apart.
Right.
Even then, we are in a unique position of having done a lot before this phenomena is happening in the world around us. So 3 uniqueness off the top of my head in answering your question that I think augurs well for our future. Yes, are there anxieties? I have some of the anxieties. But can we overcome those anxieties and plan for the future, plot for the future, strategize for the future? The answer is an absolute yes. And as a 4G leader, we must be able to govern Singapore with the confidence, even if we have a dose of anxiety.
Right.
Never be overconfident, but we have so much going for us. Let's look at those strengths that we must strengthen even further and overcome the challenges or the shortfalls we have as a people. Understand that we are not perfect, but we are striving for excellence.
In May 2018, you became Secretary General of the NTUC. What would you like to achieve at NTUC?
Well, that's a question that begs a long answer, but I'll try to summarize it
Okay.
as best as I can. 3 W's. Better wages, better welfare, and better work prospects for the workers.
Okay.
In doing so,
I like the better wages part.
which one?
Better wages.
Better wages.
Yes,
You like
absolutely.
it? All right.
Of course I like it.
Please join the union.
I am already a member.
But you see, the way that we do the 3 W's, unlike other countries, we have tripartism,
Sure.
where we work with the government of the day, the business employers, the bosses,